Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Local Sports Roundup for everything. We'll start off where you were last night. Chi High taking on Spash. Chi High was originally down, right? But they made a come.
Correct. They were down 14-0 in the second quarter and won 36-21. So a big win right off the bat for the Cardinals. Spash was the defending Wisconsin Valley Conference champion, went unbeaten in conference play last year. Returns a good amount of players from that team as well, especially their quarterback, who was a conference co-player of the year. So, but I think it was just kind of one of those games where it kind of showcased what the Cardinals can do and what, like, if they're firing on all cylinders, the type of team they might be able to be, where offensively, they ran for nearly 300 yards, the combination of Jackson Bolin and Jackson LeMay. Two familiar names from the spring. They were fantastic track athletes, not a surprise that they would be very fast out there, but right. Also getting some good efforts in the run game from Brett Krista, linebacker as well, but he was the fullback in that double wing Chippewa offense is always going to get their play, and Coach Chuck Rakovich also threw he was quick to credit the offensive line too, because Stevens Point's got some really big kids, and they were able. They plowed the road. There's a reason that they ran for almost 300 yards, and it's because they had some good holes out there. So, and defensively, Chippewa, early on they had a couple fumbles, a couple kind of things go against them, but that defense really hung in there and held a good passing team to, I believe, less than 100 yards.
Wow.
Passing the ball. So Chippewa defense over the years has always been good.
Mm-hmm.
In their better years they've been great, and that was a really good first effort right off the bat. A couple interceptions for Guyton Patro and Drake Dawkins. So, and they came in important times.
Yeah,
and that's just a. That's just one. It's just one of those games that right off the bat, like when you get it, it can kind of be a bit of a. You look for it to be a bit of a tone setter because Stevens Point is a good team. That's a team that could repeat as Wisconsin Valley champions, and to be able to come out in that way, that's just it's starting on the right note. And obviously, there's still 8 more games to go in the regular season, and one win does not a season make. But I think the Cardinals come out of that first game, feeling pretty optimistic about what this season could be for them.
Absolutely. So. And then it must have been a night with comebacks, because with Menominee and North jumped out to an early lead, and Menominee making the comeback victory last night though too. But you got both teams, and North I think maybe surprised some people, but they're getting better, and they put up a fight last night against a Menominee team that with Coach Sins over there. It's a program like. We use that word quite a bit, right? A program over there. So, that was a close game last night between those two ball clubs.
Right, and it's kind of been said before, but it is a new year here. A lot of credit goes to Coach Matt McGinnis with what they've been able to do with Eau Claire North these last few years. Being able to really kind of bring that team back to being a competitive team, a team that was in the playoff hunt
right
a lot of the year last year. So, but you're right, like being able to jump out to that early lead, Menominee kind of sticking with it.
Yep.
Certainly not kind of getting out of their own head once it kind of got a little tough, and being able to make that comeback. And it was a good first night for the Big Rivers in general. When you look at Chippewa Falls getting the win, Menominee coming back to get the win, New Richmond picking up a win at Marshfield,
right?
River Falls,
low scoring one too.
7-6 game. River Falls picking up the win at Wisconsin Rapids.
Rice Lake picking up a win
against
DCF.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So night one for the Big Rivers against the Wisconsin Valley, which is always a good conference with all of those teams we mentioned, was a good one. And there's going to be some more of those matchups tonight. Hudson Eau Claire Memorial. It's weird to say that that's sounds like a non-conference game, but that's how it is now. So it was a good first step for a Big Rivers that I think is going to be extremely competitive. And it's such a fun tone setter when you can just kind of start the year with a win like that. Menominee being able to, lean on, they're a team that can run the ball, they can pass the ball.
Right.
They've got a lot of returning experience with their skill guys, and they're going to lean on that. And they kind of saw that a little bit last night with, some of the different ways they were able to move the ball.
Yeah. You mentioned tonight, you mentioned Morgan Game Memorial in Hudson. I know we got a full slate. We were talking with Dr. Crow a little bit earlier. Were you just going to be taking on Turtle Lake going up there too? You're going to be watching, is it Cadott and Augusta?
Correct. I will be in Cadott tonight for Cadott and Augusta. A matchup of two teams that it was interesting because I didn't think of this, but they are not very far apart. But it's the first time they played in like 40 years.
Oh, okay.
And they played a lot, like in the 50s, the 60s, 70s, the 80s, and it kind of got away from that. But I'm very interested in that because it's two teams. I think they're younger teams. They're in maybe in a little bit different spots, but also I think this is gonna be a really competitive game.
Yeah.
With these two, Augusta out of the Dairyland, Cadott now a team in the Lakeland. They moved this year, along with many others, and that's going to be a very competitive Lakeland Conference too. When you look at teams like Cameron and Webster and Grantsburg, teams that are always kind of in that playoff mix. So, but there's a lot of big time games tonight. I mean, one game that I'm not going to be at, but I will be finding a way to keep an eye on is going to be Stanley Boyd at Colby. Those are two teams that were ranked in some preseason polls. Teams that are going to be looked at as being contenders for conference championships in their respective conferences, and that's another one where it's the first time those teams have played since 2019 because they used to share the Clover Belt together, and they have that was kind of a maybe people don't know, but Stanley Boyd and Colby is a good rivalry for football. They've played a lot over the years. They've had a lot of high profile matchups. They've played a lot in the playoffs. That's one where I think a lot of people are going to be kind of reintroduced to just kind of how fun of a rivalry that was because they've just they've played so many games that have meant a lot through the years, and that's something that when I talked with Coach Jeff Koenig in the preseason that he really emphasized. He was happy that was able to get back on the schedule because it really means a lot. Now it's tough when you start with a game like that. Everyone will, but it was just an emphasis in preseason, like we got to be ready to go because we can't come out 3/4 speed here because if we are, it's going to be an uphill fight for us.
Right.
But that's one. Bloomer going to Somerset. Somerset's a team that made the third round of the D4 playoffs last year. Bloomer brings back some firepower with its skill position players as well. So that'll be I could see that one maybe being a little bit of a higher scoring game there, but. Yeah, we're going. This is going to be the first Friday, and keep in mind it's not a full schedule yet because it's just 11-man teams. 8-man will have their scrimmages today. So a lot of the 8-man teams in the area are traveling around. Cornell, I know, hosts a scrimmage. Gilman will be there. Some other teams. McDonald heads to Clayton. There's some other teams that are making some trips around, and next week everyone gets together next week. So
Altoona's also taking on Fall Creek. I know
that's tonight. A lot. That's another one, a bit like Cadott and Augusta, except they've been, that series has been played a lot. But the short distance rivalries, which I always like when you get those in non-conference play. It's just fun, because that's the idea, right? You want to play teams close to you, and that's a little bit easier to do with smaller schools because there's just fewer larger schools around here.
Right.
But it's the Altoona, or it's like a Cameron and a Barron, where it's close, And now those two teams are in different conference, but those type of matchups always I really like those just because, at the end of the day, sports is always kind of about supporting your town, your area, whatever it is, and when you get those teams that are those games that are right next to each other, that's always fun. Plus, it's always short travel distance for everybody, which is early on in the year everyone likes.
Yep.
No one wants to be making a 3-hour bus ride before school actually starts.
Right. Yeah. Switching gears here, you mentioned Bloomer a little bit, but Bloomer boys basketball has a new head coach.
They do, but a familiar one.
Yeah.
Keenan Dahl taking over for Bloomer. Longtime New Auburn coach, had a lot of success with the Trojans. Won 3 conference championships there. A coach that always had that team in the mix, and I think that's a good get for Bloomer. Keenan comes from a basketball family. His dad, Warren, Hall of Fame coach with Osseo Fairchild, took them to state a few different times. So that's a guy that's going to be coming in there with a lot of knowledge, and I'm interested to see what he does there because Keenan is one thing a lot of things I've always respected about him, but he's always one of those coaches I feel like every year has gotten the most he can out of the team he has. Then the years where New Auburn's had a lot of talent, they've been conference champions. They've been able to make runs into the deep into the regionals, play for regional championships, that kind of stuff, and go into a school like Bloomer that's going to have some turnover this year, coming off of last year's Western Clover Belt championship, but still, a a couple of the football players, Zeke Strand and Colin Crane. I mean, those are basketball players too. Guys that had solid years last year. Those are guys, he's probably going to be very familiar with in the winter here. I think that's just a good fit for everybody involved.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that with Coach Van Grunsven making the move to Menominee. So it's a domino effect. It is a lot of time, but that's a good get for Bloomer.
And then New Auburn's going to be looking
right.
for
They're going to be in the hunt for a boys basketball coach, and whoever gets that job, that's a good job to get right now too, because last year they were in the hunt until the last week of the regular season with Coach Dahl, and most of that team comes back. So that's led by Justin Melland, who's a really good post player. I mean, that's one thing, especially over the years, Keen Dahl's done a really good job of, is he's very good at helping to develop post players. And especially in the game now where that's not always a thing. That's just something I've always respected about him is, he's seemingly always had that guy that'll, post up in the paint and, just get to the basket.
Yeah.
Which I think, for guys like you and me who like that old school style of basketball, that's something it's fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, that New Auburn job, whoever gets that, they're going to be, they're going to walk into a spot where they're going to be able to contend right away.
All right. Interesting. I know was it last week we had some games for WBA tournament?
Yes, the WBA tournament wrapped up last weekend. And we mentioned at the time Tilden making it as a, because of a disqualification, I guess, elsewhere, and they ended up finishing runner-up.
Yeah.
I mean, that Tilden team was great. That's a really good team. They lost in the finals to River Falls, defeated Chippewa Falls and Wisconsin Rapids on the way. So, another great year for the Tigers, who won the championship last year. But I mentioned Chippewa Falls, Lumberjacks, and Cadott making the WBA finals. I mean, that was the Final Eight for the first time in since the 80s for both of those programs. So that's a really cool thing for them to see. And I know those are younger teams, so I'm sure they're looking at, hey, this can be the kind of the stepping stone to maybe some bigger things in the coming years.
Right.
And in the Class B championship, a little bit outside our range, but Osceola was the Division B champion that was crowned in Whittlesey. We had the conversation about Whittlesey last week, and that was where the Osceola Braves took the championship there. So, I mean, your two champions this year are very much in that western part of the state with Osceola and River Falls. I mean, that's the CRBL is a good area for baseball, and so is that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. So, and I know, next week probably more. I know tennis has been getting kind of
tennis has gotten going. Girls golf was underway this week. Chippewa Falls has gotten off to a pretty good start. They won the Superior Invite on I think it was Wednesday, but either way, it was Tuesday. No, it's Tuesday earlier this week. But yeah, we've got those games going. We got a lot of volleyball scrimmages this weekend and early next week because, by this time next week, actually next Friday, Saturday is the Menominee Sprawl.
Oh, okay.
It's always it's big, like 40, big 40-team tournament. I know there's a lot of teams from around here. They're in it. Chippewa Falls is in it. McDonald's in it. Bloomer's in it this year. Cadott and Stanley Boyd are in it. I mean, there's just Menominee's in it. There's just a lot of, and that's over at Stout. So, it's next weekend's kind of interesting because it's Labor Day.
Yeah.
On Saturday, but yet there's a fair amount of stuff going on.
Well, I know tennis is going on.
Tennis is going on. That the Sprawl is usually like that weekend before.
Yep.
But I think just because of the way the schedule started, you don't kind of have that extra weekend in there.
Right.
So you want to get it in, and that's because that's usually something you're doing before a lot
Labor
of
Day's really early.
Everyone's fully in session, so it's just kind of the way the schedule is this year. So that Labor Day Saturday, there's actually stuff going on.
Yeah.
So that'll be a little different, but yeah, everything picks up. You got soccer starting next week. I mean, all the sports are underway with practice right now. So, we're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are off and running.